stoked for the Live and online, it's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, live on YouTube with a serviceable internet connection this week.
Yeah.
Shout out Oklahoma Speed Test. This is Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube on this Wednesday evening. Down a brother, down a man. This COVID vaccine, this damn thing, as blessed as it is.
First it was Comcast, now it's Bill Gates upgrading everyone to 6G. It's really disappointing.
Yep. This show is a resilient program, and we are a resilient bunch. But when you put us up against shoddy Comcast having an outage in the middle of the show last week, coupled with microchip implants, it's a recipe for disaster. But we're here. Joe is reeling from his second COVID shot. They say that one's an ass kicker. It's giving me so good vibes when I get my second shot on Tuesday. But he's doing well. I spoke to him this afternoon, but we got Dominic pushing the button, sliding the sliders, clicking the photos, and doing all sorts of wizardry that I don't even see, so I can have this great platform that I do. So Dom, shout out to you. You're a warrior. And Joe, we hope you feel better. And it's going to be very interesting next week because he'll be back. You guys will be back next week. With me, it's going to be very interesting because I get my COVID shot on Tuesday, and then Wednesday is the show. And a month ago, I missed because I had complications from the first one. But it's like I might be brought in on my deathbed on Wednesday because it's the Oscar show. I can't miss that.
Yeah, no, there's no way.
So I'm going to have to.
It's our Super Bowl.
Really going to have to.
Our Olympics.
Trust. Yes, it is. The first best Sunday, second is Super Bowl Sunday, and two of the best TV events next week. I said it last week. I think I said it the week before too. Two best TV events next week. They just line up. You got the Oscars on Sunday. You got the NFL Draft on Thursday. Need I say more? So it's going to be a great week to be alive next week. I can't wait. But Joe, feel better, man. If you're watching, the show is in very good, capable hands. You will be missed, but we'll see your handsome self next week. Maybe he'll even be sleeveless with Steve. It's going to be 80 next week. Nice. He might even be sleeveless with Steve. But we got a great show for you today. These gentlemen, and I'm kind of disappointed Joe ain't here to talk about it because Joe was one of the ones who coerced me into watching this. Dom was twisting my arm. Joe was like, you should watch this if you want. But Dom's like, you got to watch Shin Godzilla. He even went as far as to buy it on Vudu. Shout out to you, D. And so we're going to talk Shin Godzilla. Godzilla is a hot topic now with Godzilla versus Kong in theaters and making a ton of money. So we're going to talk Shin Godzilla. And I'll just preface this by saying, screw me for not watching this movie sooner. I'll say that much. Cannot wait to dive in and talk to you about it, Dom, because you have a big background with Godzilla. You can maybe fill in some blanks. But
I have not watched all 27 Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla versus Mothra versus Atomic whatever. I don't know. But for the record, we're preferencing this entire conversation. You might get the impression it's like, oh, these guys are weeaboos, Japan stands, where it's like, Far East art is superior to all Western whatever, and Japan is perfect and all that stuff. On the contrary, Japan puts out a lot of good stuff, but they are also the innovators of whoring out Godzilla to really just turning him into a superhero and the defender of the earth angle. So they did like dozens of that before America even had a hand in it. So certainly. So I'm just saying that this one has brought it back to its roots. Its nuclear undersea roots, and very so glad they did.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to talking about that. And don't worry, anybody looks like a Godzilla expert to me. I really haven't seen many of the movies. Seen the original, the Ishiro Honda film from 1954. I've seen that a couple times. I've actually seen that one. But I'm not going to twist your arm and hold it against you if you haven't seen Godzilla versus the Harlem Globetrotters or whatever the hell.
I almost believed you for a second. I'm like, that could be a thing.
Yeah, I mean, a Mad TV sketch. But we got that to talk about. Shin Godzilla going to be the meat of it. I got a crazy ass project that I'm embarking on in my small little town over here. It involves Blockbuster, so it's movie related. I'll end the show with that. I was supposed to end the show last week with it, but complications arose. And we'll kick off with this topic. But first, But first, Dom has a heart-sinking admission about our next topic right here. What do you want to tell the audience about your relationship with Mad Max Fury Road, Dominic?
Um, Mad Max Fury Road is my favorite movie of all time. And I just have to. No, I haven't seen it. I have not seen Mad Max Fury Road.
Hasn't seen Mad Max Fury Road. Hasn't seen it. Like, there's a few movies, believe me, I have some blind spots, but one of the best, if not the best, action film of the decade, and you haven't seen it.
I know, right?
Now you know how I feel when people say that when people tell me their favorite movie, and it's like, oh my God, you haven't watched What Women Want with Mel Gibson? How could you call yourself a critic? Now you know what I have to deal with.
That's not that good of a movie. I don't know what people are saying.
That was the first one that popped into my head. That's where my mind's at. Mad Max Fury Road, though, is finally getting a sequel, technically a prequel. It's hard to believe that it's been 6 years since that immaculate film that Dom hasn't seen graced theaters in 2015. It's one of my favorites of that year and one of the best action movies of the last decade, like I said. Speculation for a follow-up of some sort has run rampant, really, since it came out. And George Miller's famously, I don't want to say that, methodical, I guess, with making movies. He doesn't release many. I think I might be wrong on this, but I think when Mad Max Fury Road came out, the last thing he did before that was Happy Feet 2. I'm not even kidding. I think that was that was the last thing he did.
I remember stumbling upon his filmography, and I'm like, yeah, Mad Max Fury Road, Happy Feet. I'm like, okay, the sequel, by the way, sequel.
Yeah, he did the first one too. I remember being shocked at that when I was looking into George Miller, when I watched all the Mad Max movies leading up to Fury Road. I was like, he really did Happy Feet. Holy crap. But we're getting a prequel to Mad Max Fury Road. It's called Furiosa. And it's an epic set to take place in Australia. Not only take place in Australia, it's set to be the biggest production Australia's ever seen. Good for them. And it's going to span many years. So that's noteworthy because Mad Max Fury Road takes place over like 3 days, I believe, whereas Furiosa is supposed to take place over a span of years. Now, I know the top question is going to be, is Charlize Theron coming back? But she's not. This is going to be like an origin story of Furiosa. So it's going to be Anya Taylor-Joy. They want somebody younger because of the fact that it's going to kind of be a prequel to the events of Fury Road. It's kind of disappointing, though, because she was so good as that character. And she was really terrific. But Anya Taylor-Joy, who I love, she's still riding high from the Queen's. She's still riding high from the Queen's Gambit. She was in Thoroughbreds.
You're right. Yeah.
One of Joe's favorite films.
She got them wide eyes, which I'm not criticizing. She's beautiful, but I'm just saying she has a striking, very striking face. If you look her up,
soul penetrating eyes.
Yeah,
but
really.
Chris Hemsworth is going to co-star, which is an interesting choice. I honestly, I'm very optimistic because I really have no reason not to be. There's not a ton to say, but I think it's news worth mentioning because Mad Max Fury Road always gets headlines. And I feel like it's one of those action movies too, that people still talk about. Like, and we almost treat it like it's a standalone movie. It's that good because not only did it come so many years after Beyond the Thunderdome, the Mel Gibson Mad Max series, but it also just stood so damn well on its own as just an individual breakneck movie. I remember going to the theater for it, and I didn't see really any trailers, truthfully, or I didn't pay attention. So I didn't know what I was in for. And it only took about 20 minutes to realize this thing is really just one long chase. Choreographed, styled, beautiful. It was that. You want an argument for preserving the theatrical experience? If you saw Mad Max Fury Road in theaters, that's why the theater going experience is damn worth saving.
Was it like a Dunkirk level of like auditory and visual splendor?
Oh man, it ranks. If I were to make a top 10 list of most memorable movies to have seen in theaters, that would absolutely be in my top 10 because it was that striking, beautiful movie, and just raucous and loud in the best possible way.
Ready for the Furiosa?
Furiosa, there we go.
Keep talking.
What's her name?
Her name's Hazel.
Hazel, that's Hazel. Okay. I'm grateful for the new direction that this series is set to take and the return of George Miller as well. I do think that's going to be a very interesting sort of dynamic too, with George Miller having not directed for many years. He's really been able to focus all his attention on this kind of series and take his time with it. And lastly, Furiosa set for a release on June 23rd, 2023. And that's the weekend of my birthday. So that will be a beautiful 27th birthday present for myself.
Nice.
As a year after, I'm probably still going to be reeling from getting off my parents' insurance.
It
Dom,
hurts.
any thoughts on Furiosa, the prequel?
Not too much, but I will say that in the same way that Lord of the Rings has a special tie to New Zealand, I'm getting this growing feeling that Mad Max has a very special tie to Australia. Because if you go like a couple miles inland to Australia, it's basically Mad Max, so I've been told. With just vast wilderness and giant creatures, just ready to kill. Well, really, just the threat of imminent death in the outback, the horrible outback.
So I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully by then you'll have seen Mad Max Fury Road. So when we do the Furiosa review a year from now in June, you will be a very well-versed man.
I have a growing list of movies where it's like, yeah, I should probably like get like up to date on this.
I feel you. Believe me, my watch list is a couple hundred movies deep. And it doesn't help that I find stuff or just randomly think of stuff from years back. And I'm like, I haven't watched that, so.
You still do one movie a day, right? Maybe not in a theater.
Quite frankly, not as much as I used to. This has been a down month, honestly, with projects and stuff. I still watch on average anywhere from maybe 18 to 25 movies a month in total.
Nice.
But, I used to really do one a day. Not by choice. It was just I had really more time, kind of by choice, but I had more time. But now, like I was just telling you pre-show, I'm juggling. You'll hear about one of them at the end of the show. I'm juggling at the moment about 5 different projects right now, which is awesome in my opinion, because I compare it to a year from now when I looked at my calendar and the only thing I had on it was work, so I'm blessed to be busy in that regard. And Dominic, this is the last thing I'll say about this. Dominic needs to get busy and watch Fury Road.
That's true. Hey, what are the top 3 movies that you should suggest in the chase action genre? I guess Heat is one of them, which I've seen.
Sure, Heat. Are you talking about canon movies or just movies that have been in the canon, like they're huge movies? Or
I guess
just,
so.
Great
we'll say that.
Movies. Okay. Because I was gonna really throw a curveball and say Emilio Estevez's Judgment Night.
Oh my god!
But
I don't know.
I was really gonna throw that. But like for chase movies, I guess Heat. Obviously Mad Max Fury Road. You're putting me on the spot
I know.
here. For other really good chase movies, though. I don't know if it doesn't have to be a vehicle. Taking a Pelham 123.
Oh, I know there was a remake a while back, but you're talking about
the original.
The original.
The original.
You're right. When I saw the remake, like literally like 15 years ago or something, I think it had Denzel Washington, right?
Yeah.
I was like, so this is a remake? I feel like the old one would be really cool. You know what? French Connection. I have not seen French Connection.
French Connection's another one. I haven't seen that one in years. Speed. Keanu Reeves.
Oh, that one I have seen, and that one is
that's an
timeless.
Epic movie. That's an epic ass movie,
dude. The shot of Jeff Daniels when he dies. It's like he's at the house, right, and there's a bomb, and he knows, and it's just like, the camera's like, and then cut to explosion. I'm like, I love that. I love that scene.
That is a tremendously great film.
So
in every stretch. One of the movies that made me love movies. I had it on VHS. Moreover, though, let's move into the meat of the show, Shin Godzilla. Any Godzilla fan will tell you that the King of the Monsters hasn't merited a filmography of winners, at least all winners. And I guess when you're 30 movies deep, they can't all be winners. There's a lot of B-movie trifle intermixed with the gems when it comes to Godzilla, or so Godzilla fans will say. Shin Godzilla, let me start by saying this. This movie was released in Japan in 2016. It didn't get a theatrical release in the United States. But I remember at the time it being hugely popular on Reddit. I remember everybody was talking about it. Everybody on our movies, it was the biggest movie that you really couldn't see or see easily in America until it was released on home media. And this isn't just a really good Japanese blockbuster as much as it was. This garnered several awards and nominations at the Japan I can never remember the Japan
In the
Academy
equivalent
Film
of the
Awards.
Academy Awards in Japan,
Yes.
it won Best Picture.
Yes, and it was a huge movie to say the least. And let me tell you, for all the billions that Hollywood has and all their resources, it could never make a blockbuster this subversive,
No.
this graceful, or this compelling. This is a world-class movie. This is a world-class Godzilla movie. Coming from someone who never had much interest in Godzilla as a whole, this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about right here. This is Aaron Sorkin. This is Godzilla by way of Aaron Sorkin mixed with a little Wes Anderson.
It took
And
about
it's
us, what,
astute framing.
2.5 minutes to mention Aaron Sorkin, our Western minds. But you're totally right. Sorry,
Yes.
continue.
Yeah. And a little Wes Anderson, too. Yeah. Just the way the framing is and some of the shots and how detailed and everything. There's so much to talk about. It's kaiju madness by way of Aaron Sorkin, but even that is not even that's a really oversimplification of it. I got to tip my hat to Hideki Anno and Shinji Higuchi, the directors of this. Anno being a writer too, the screenwriter of it. They have crafted a beautiful movie in every sense of the word that returns the monster of Godzilla to its allegorical roots.
Yes.
Because this movie, in a lot of ways, recalls the devastating Fukushima nuclear disaster brought on by that catastrophic tsunami in 2011 that devastated so many wards and villages of Japan. I remember that vividly when that happened. We were in high school, and that was a calamitous event, to say the least. But even to that degree, though, it's a lot like the 1954 Ishiro Honda movie in that that was an allegory too for post-war Japan and the threat of a nuclear holocaust. And there's so much to get into with this movie. I'm interested. Like I said, I'm the new person watching it. I just watched it for the first time yesterday. Dom has seen it. I assume you watched it again for the show. What are your general thoughts on Shin Godzilla? And definitely tie it into, like, would you consider, I know it doesn't really meet our qualifications, but like, you obviously convinced me to watch it. I think there's a must-see level to this movie. What say you?
Yes. In the wake of Godzilla versus Kong, which is the reason why we brought it up in the first place, this is a must-see movie because, Steve, you were saying, if Hollywood can ever be this subversive ever, that will be a watershed moment in filmmaking. I am telling you, this is because that's just how powerful it shows how powerful the Godzilla idea truly is when handled correctly. And yeah, its allegorical roots, when it actually means something other than the incredibly generic Godzilla represents nature, defender of the earth. No, come on, that's too much. No, when it is an allegory to mankind's inability to wrestle with not just nature, but with its own monsters, with its own disasters. In this movie, it's the bureaucracy. It's the over reliance on military measures. The ability to get things done and communicate. There's an angle of not that too much attention is given to it, but also like worrying about the press, worrying about popular opinion, worrying about democracy. Again, just overarching how that bakes into everything, and something that even the original Godzilla couldn't really touch on because it just wasn't at the time. But in Shin Godzilla, America's subservient relationship to the United States, like this movie, constantly jabs at the U.S. and rightfully so, because
Japan's relationship with the United States.
Yeah, that's what I meant. And just how it constantly has to think. Either like things get foisted upon them, where it's like, oh, the U.S. is doing this. Okay, well, say that we're in a bilateral agreement, when in reality that's not what happened. Which I imagine literally every other country in the world probably does the same thing, right? Particularly ones that may not be so powerful. So just in that aspect, it brings something new to the table while hitting on all the major emotions and cultural touchstones that the OG one did, and just seeing that play out with the modern sensibilities of what we can do with CGI and the cinematography and all that stuff. And then on top of that, the genius of Hideki Anno. I have like a love relationship with Hideki Anno. For Steve, I don't think you knew this, but he is well known as the creator, longtime creator and continuing runner of the Neon Genesis Evangelion franchise. And having watched the original series, 26 episodes, and the end of Evangelion, I can say that really is an amazing and milestone in anime, and quite easily it could be argued animation overall, particularly in the time span that it was released in the 90s. It really was groundbreaking. I still have a lot of problems with Evangelion and a lot of Anno's style in that franchise and how it developed and how it bounced back and forth, but let me just say, Shin Godzilla took all the good parts from Evangelion and left behind all the bullshit, or at least the overall majority of it, and condensed it into this movie. And it is, I'm telling you right now, this is a 4-star movie for me, because it is, it hits me in a way that really no other movie I think has been able to, since what goodness, I don't know. Steve, could you possibly compare this in terms of how it hits you in such a subversive way? I don't know. Doesn't even have to be politics related.
I mean, it strikes me because, first and foremost, I don't want to compare it to anything directly. It reminded me of a couple movies, and I'll mention the one here in a minute. But I'll say this much though. The most subversive thing, we're throwing that word around. Yeah. The most subversive thing this movie does is that it lures you in with its title already, Shin Godzilla. But the movie is mostly taking place in boardrooms.
Yes.
And it's mostly taking place in these sort of really manicured, protected layers of these Japanese bureaucrats who are trying to figure out how the hell to contain this thing as more people are dying and getting displaced and the country getting torn to ruins. It's less concerned with carnage than it is with emergency meetings and policy. And the bureaucrats in the movie are portrayed as those tethered more to positions of power as opposed to individuals concerned about the safety of the public. Now, I know some people are thinking, though, that and this is why this thing would probably never sell well in America. No. It is just because of the fact, and it's better than the American Godzilla, which I was very critical of in the 2014 movie. It's far better than that.
Oh yeah,
because it at least has a vision, and it makes the gripping makes the policy scenes and the decision making scenes really strong, just based on the urgency that's crafted around them. And then when we do occasionally get a peek outside of Godzilla, morphing and tearing up the city and such, we get it from mostly from a civilian's eye perspective.
Yes.
Which shows the largeness of this thing and the devastation. There's a couple great scenes with Godzilla in this movie, and I know that sounds kind of like cheeky being it is a Godzilla movie, but there's a few great scenes with Godzilla. The first building he topples, the first skyscraper he topples, is masterful. It is a masterful when he finally breathes his atomic breath too.
Yeah.
Just the doominess, because the fire overtakes the background in that scene.
It's a moment. And it's way larger than you think it's going to be. So it hits you on such a level. And not only that, it's funny because it's a 1-2 punch in that specific scene where he reveals his yellow atomic breath. It immediately surpasses that and goes to like a purple beam of just raw energy wrecking everything, which is the fact that this movie can turn such a gimmicky thing like, oh yeah, it's like a purple atomic beam, laser beam. It's like, that's such a sci-fi stupid thing. But when it elevates there, coupled with the music, the cinematography, oh my God, it hits. The first time I watched that, like 3 or 4 years ago, I was slack-jawed because that. In fact, one criticism of the movie that might be able to levy, although I think there's a nuance to it, but once you get past that point, it kind of comes down a little bit. I mean, it kind of has to. But regardless, yeah, no, the point of view in Destruction is so important because, we're not going to sit here and just completely admonish Kong versus Godzilla and do that the whole time. I would love to, but that's not too fun.
You could take the reins there.
Yeah, but I will say that in many shots of Kong versus Godzilla, the camera's moving like a freaking fighting video game, right? And it's swinging around, and it's like, how are these shots even possible? Not even a helicopter. Like in Shin Godzilla, there are multiple aerial shots, but they're all, if mostly, at least, from like, okay, this could plausibly be from like a security camera or maybe a satellite or a helicopter, something that can ground us as opposed to just being raw action. And just that point of view, really the trick of what this movie does so well and how it can really immerse you in its politics, aside from a bunch of other things. But really the trick is when a movie is able to really immerse you in the human element, right? The human element of what this monster has, the effect that this monster has on people. And when you immerse yourself in that human element, disaster planning, hospitals, what does the military need to do? They need to plan. We need to set up a line. We need to do that. What's our foreign relationship with China, Russia, and the US? When it immerses you with that, it has a really grounding effect. So when a building is toppled or when people die, it magnifies so much more because now when someone dies, that's making the news. That's another body bag that you have to procure from logistics, all this stuff. And it's like, it's just a compounding thing that all this stuff that happens off screen. And it's a cerebral trick that is so clever and so cool that you don't get with a lot of I was going to say American Godzillas, but also a lot of Japanese Godzillas where it's like, he's just fighting a giant metal thing where it's like, okay, sure, whatever. But yeah, dude, I gotta ask here, Hideki Anno and how he handles his shots and his cinematography. Did that affect you in a certain way that many other directors don't? That's kind of a leading question, of course, but I gotta probe it.
First things first, I'm going to piggyback off everything you just said right there, because that was going to be another point that I was going to make down the line is that, and I won't reiterate much of what you just eloquently stated, but it shows the gravity and the human capital, and it keeps that really centric. And you would think a movie comprised of a lot of boardroom meetings and emergency disaster planning and stuff, you wouldn't get that. But that's how they're talking. And then they cut to a news report, or they cut to a building being toppled, or they cut to chaos in the streets. I mean, Christ, the sheer magnitude too of when Godzilla's storming through the city and all those cars are piling up moments after the people were told to leave their cars and run. Yeah. Like it's unfathomable. And it's one of those things too, where it's like, that's where you get it tied back into the Fukushima nuclear disaster. That's where you get it tied back into that. Is it's like, you know what? It might not have been a 150-ton lizard storming through the country, but it was another catastrophic disaster that left millions displaced, millions homeless, and a city in ruins.
I mean, honestly, a lot of this, that's what another thing I love about this movie. It's not disaster porn. It is the shots of disaster mean something, because a lot of them were purposefully shot to very clearly reference the damage, the same kind of damage done by the flooding and the tsunami. So when Godzilla's going through he starts off in the rivers of Tokyo, because he's still small enough to fit in there, and he's just ripping things up, boats and water spilling everywhere. And then of course it goes into the streets and it rises. That's obviously very clearly like a tsunami damage right there. And then when you tack on top of the radiation. Yeah, go ahead.
And the clever bait and switch there is that, like, you come in wanting a Godzilla movie, but then like when you're seeing all the planning and the logistics about like dealing with such calamity, and then you see Godzilla attack a building, instead of becoming like it's a riveting moment, but instead of becoming like a jubilant moment as an audience member, it becomes tragic.
Yes. Yeah,
And that's a
exactly.
brilliant, that's where the subversion angle comes in. But back to your earlier question, though,
Mhm.
I was really taken, and I don't use this term very much. This is very much a fresh out of film school term.
Nice.
I was really taken, though, by the mise en scène of this whole
Oh
thing.
my gosh.
This is the first thing they teach you when you study film in college.
Mise en
But
scène, helicopter,
you know,
chopper attacking Godzilla.
yeah,
That's where the mise en scène comes in.
shout out Mrs. Abrahamson. She taught me all about that. But this is a detailed oriented production. There's a complex array, and if you don't look close enough, you might miss it. There's a really complex array of blocking and staging schemes that are
Yes.
going on throughout this thing. Like the people, sure, not to get any credit. I mean, Ano, he's an editor on this, but also Atsuki Sato, who does they do a tremendous job. They make beautiful music with the cutting, especially when they assemble that sort of like disaster emergency coalition, and they board them up all in that one room,
Right.
and they're moving desks, and they're moving, dollies, and they're moving chairs.
It's like a
to,
musical,
like,
man. You're
barricade
right.
themselves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It is. It is. They make some beautiful music with the editing. And I joked, and I'm not really joking, because it does kind of bear similarity, but it's kind of, you can't make a Wes Anderson reference with a straight face most of the time. But this has a lot of Wes Anderson feel to it, just in the detail oriented moments and how a lot of the shots are straight on. I
Yeah.
paused this movie at frequent moments just to kind of look at the scenery, and just like the almost symmetrical moments of the boardrooms of the people sitting on either side. There's a real symmetry here, and there's real like mathematical thinking going on with the visual production of this that just loans
Absolutely.
to it being attractive despite pervasive ugliness throughout this whole thing in both character and events.
And dude, how ugly is the Godzilla in this movie? My God, it is just a raw, dripping being of just constantly in pain, which is what I love. I love about this iteration of Godzilla, because in second Kong versus Godzilla reference. Sorry, I'll stop at 3, I promise. But in Kong versus Godzilla, we literally get reaction shots of Godzilla smiling, and it's like Kong comes in. All right, I'm ready to beat up Mecha Godzilla, and then there's a reaction shot of Godzilla literally like smiling and like chuckling. No, dude, hell no. If this was a giant radioactive lizard, completely speed running through evolution in a matter of days and hours, this thing would be bleeding everywhere, wouldn't know what to do, just literally begging. It's begging for death constantly.
It's disoriented.
Yeah, it just scarred all over its body, which is a reference again to the OG Godzilla, because the character design, its scarring was a reference to the radiation scarring in the bombing in 45. So I just another.
Here's what I'll say. If you want a comparable thing, I'll tell you right now. If you want a comparable thing as a human being, okay, I'm trying to think. Run straight into your garage door like from about 20 feet back. Run straight into your garage door 40 times, and then go walk through your kid's Lego set. That's what Godzilla feels like.
That's
okay,
true. That's so freaking true, because it just the wake of destruction. It truly is aimless, right? It's not aiming like. Okay, last one. Okay, in the opening minutes of Kong versus Godzilla, it is literally attacking, like strategically attacking, like a military corporate asset. No, this one just rampaging through Tokyo because it doesn't know what the hell it's doing. Okay, last reference, I promise. But
you're fine. Yeah, but no, it's writhing in pain, and I will say the first iteration, the first time we do get a look at the monster, first time we do get a look at Godzilla, like with the big eyes and everything, it's like almost this close to being a little corny, just the way it looks. But like, it doesn't take long to brush that off, and it's like, God, is it hideous?
Because it's disturbing. Like, it starts bleeding everywhere soon. Because I noticed that too. It's like, what the hell is up with those eyes? Right. It's like fish eye or lizard eye, where they don't have eyelids, I think. I think that was the basis for that. But then it just starts bleeding everywhere, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? First time I saw that. Yeah, and then he
Yeah,
just keeps
it's really repulsive. No, and it's true though. Like and I know you were the most critical of the three of us with Godzilla versus Kong, where Joe and I liked it, appreciated it for what it was. Not to say there's not serious issues with it, but when you were recalling that, when you see like that cheeky little grin on Godzilla's face in Godzilla versus Kong, the only thing missing in that scene was Eye of the Tiger. That was the only thing that was missing. You know?
Truly, at this point, I could just continue to rail, but I think I just have to make the distinction, and Japan has already done this for us. There are two Godzillas. There is the original metaphor, the human element, this is a reflection, right? Godzilla, the mirror upon society. And then there's the superhero, right? There's just this is just here to blow shit up. This is Fast and Furious. This is Transformers. That's what it is. And
you can't make 30 movies off of an allegory.
Yeah, then that's extremely true. In fact, since Shin Godzilla, Toho has released like 4 animes where it's just Godzilla the superhero. It's like using like computer technology or whatever. I don't know. I've seen some trailers where it's like, okay, cool, whatever.
I saw some of those too.
Yeah,
reading into this.
And again, hey, you know what? If the money that those make could potentially fund future, I don't think they're gonna make sequels to this, which I'm perfectly fine with.
They're not. Yeah. At most, I was reading they're going to do a shared universe sort of thing
with like
but
Shin
they're not
Ultraman, I think. I don't know.
They're not going to make a direct sequel, which I'm supremely happy about because I was waiting to go online and read about Shin Godzilla too. Because they leave it open, certainly.
I was upset at first, but then 5 minutes in, I was like, okay, this movie said all it needed to say, because for sure it truly does stand on its own. And how everything comes together. Yeah, dude. Sorry, going back to the cinematography for a moment. If you were to watch, which I don't even know if I should suggest this to you because it's a freaking trip. But if you do watch the On Genesis Evangelion, Anno is just straight up copying his own work. He's taking his sophomore fall term paper and just like doing it again as a senior, but only like better and like truly refined here. But you know what? It proves that he was always fantastic, because not that was ever really in question, but seeing it refined here in Shin Godzilla and with the moral ammo behind it, it's and a little bit snappier too. Instead of a TV series, it's a movie. It truly does come together. I was gonna say, just going back to the disaster, the destruction and what that means as well. You know what I just realized? It reminds me actually a lot of Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds. I think from like 2005, I think ish.
Yeah, that's the year.
His take on it, which has been War of the Worlds, is kind of like I think it was a British story, and then it got turned into like movies. Famously, a radio play in America. That caused panic worldwide in the 30s, but that's been if anything, it's kind of got a parallel relationship with Godzilla, and a lot of things it can compare with. But in the way that Steven Spielberg's destruction, how it was referencing 9/11, because it was a post-war 9/11 movie. Was really capturing a lot of the destruction, a lot of that essence, a lot of the, the dust on Tom Cruise's face. It's like, oh, it's an alien vaporizing people left and right. But then when they turn to dust and then it gets all in your face and everything, it's like, oh shit, that's the World Trade Center and all that stuff. And I just love how, like, that same approach, that same general direction is applied here. It means something. It's not disaster porn. So it's really powerful when you actually decide to do something with this thing.
No, that's absolutely the case. And I'll comment too. Like, we haven't really talked too much about the human characters, but Hiroki Hasegawa, I believe is how you say his name.
We're gonna completely butcher.
We're gonna butcher. Oh, hell yeah. Who plays Yaguchi in the movie. He's like the exception character here. You know what I mean? He's like the grounded one, like the pensive looking one, and the one that's like, questions the bureaucratic decisions here. And he anchors it very well, I think, in being just, the one admirable or the primarily admirable human character. What I will say, though, is this movie's not all calamity. I'm glad I noticed it even the first time I watched it. There's some real funny ass zingers in this movie.
Hell yes.
There's some really good one-liners. My personal favorite is when the one character says, I wrote it down actually when I was watching it, is when he says, Americans admirably value performance over age, and she's Senator Patterson's daughter.
Yeah. That was one that got me too.
That was one of the. That's my favorite line of the whole damn thing. That's the level of wry humor in this thing. That doesn't make it just a completely bleak affair. If you listen, or we got the Japanese version. If you read the subtitles, which I will admit is kind of a bitch to keep up with, because there's subtitles atop the screen that detail the location, the ship, the helicopter, wherever you're at. The top of the screen details the setting or the characters or their titles, and the bottom is the dialogue. I'll just say, I admire the stylistic decision there, but it's a pain in the ass sometimes because it's almost overload. It's almost overload.
And I've seen a lot of discussion that is a critique, and you know what? Fair enough, because it is a lot. And I've read even for Japanese native speakers, where it's like, this is a lot, dude. What are you throwing at us? You could even just say, like, if they did the same thing in English, it would be a lot. But that was a design choice from that's a concerted method from Anno, and that he overwhelms you. And in fact, it turns into a gag. I don't know if you caught this, Steve, but spoiler alert for a 5-year-old movie. But later on, when all the ministers and the prime minister die in the helicopter, right, and all of their cabinet positions, all that stuff, they all die. All of them get transferred to Rando Yaguchi. So then there's a shot where it's like literally 4 or 5 lines of his title.
His title then. Yeah. No, and that's the thing. Like, I wouldn't ding the movie. I'm not dinging the movie for that, because it has a little self-awareness in that regard, though. But it does get to be a little much, though. At some points, I found myself just ignoring the top, because it was like, after a while, though, you realize it's not really super relevant information, because it's not detailing significant settings. It's detailing every setting and every title. Yes. And a lot of it is not really super significant or pertinent to the plot. It's just sort of ancillary extra information. I admire the stylistic choice, but it does get to be information overload.
It does. I really can't argue with that at all. And if I'm not like a sub or dub guy where it's like, sub is the superior original version. Dude, just, we're watching movies. Just, if you're not really into this type of thing, or if you're not used to foreign movies, just watch the English dub. There's some pretty good voice acting in there. The performances there are just as good coming from the voice. They differentiate from a lot of the characters, and you might pick up more on some jokes on some more of the dry humor, I should say.
I'm not like that either. I mean, I've watched. I'll say too, I'll contend the dub version of Battle Royale is pretty damn good. Mm-hmm. You know, I've seen both, but the dub version isn't half bad. Like, I generally gravitate more towards the subtitles generally, just to hear the native speakers. But I was reading too that the Shin Godzilla English dub is honestly not bad either. Yeah, but. No, I'm glad you guys twisted my arm to watch this, because this was something else. This has got to be maybe my favorite Godzilla. All due respect to the 54 movie, this is probably my favorite, all things considered.
I did go back and watch this past week the original, because it's on HBO. They have the original Godzilla on there, and it's not the butchered, because like apparently when it came to American shores, they super butchered. They literally inserted they shot scenes with an American character just so that people could relate to it more, because this was like, I don't know, the 60s or the 70s.
Americans love it. We love the butcher shit we didn't create.
Exactly.
I mean, if you haven't noticed that, like I think of that movie Let the Right One In, that Swedish horror movie from about 11 years ago that captivated the Sweden and was a really big hit. Then a year later they remade it into Let Me In America. Like, Americans love to take and butcher shit they didn't create. You're already going to see that happen, I think, with Parasite, with the TV series they're creating on it, the American remake they got planned. I think Bong Joon-ho is involved with the series at the very least, but they're doing an American remake. We love the butcher shit we didn't do first, which is why we can't make a blockbuster like Shin Godzilla. No. We can't allocate the resources there. We have to copycat something another country did.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I know we got to start closing out here, because you got your Blockbuster stuff I'll withhold the full title there. But I just got to say this, we could talk about this movie for so many hours. And certainly when Joe comes, for sure. We'll talk more about it. Well, not on the show, but I would just love to talk endlessly about it with Joe as well. Yeah, dude. Just real quick, last thing on the subtitles thing. Honestly, like this movie, you need to watch at least. I'm not saying you do, Steve, but if you really want to, like, you really need to watch it at least twice to get a full grasp of what the hell is going on with this movie, because it is very dense, but it is such a ride, man. And I'll segue into final thoughts, which is that this movie is something else, dude. My exposure to Japanese media, it really isn't movies. It really is anime. And for the longest time, I had grown kind of sick of it. A lot of people, including Hideki Anno himself, who has a lot to say, a lot to shit talk on otakus and the anime culture and the commercialization of that. We would always like to. We will freely shit on. I will freely shit on America for just churning out cultural garbage or whatever, and do all that stuff. But Japan is just as good at that as we are in terms of the anime shit that they put out left and right. You immerse yourself in that for a day, you ain't coming out. I'm telling you right now, it's a freaking jungle, man. But Shin Godzilla truly does prove that it's cultural milestone that it brought onto the world. Godzilla, it's one of its, if not its most famous character. Uh, I think it's better than the original because it truly completes the idea, brought on, coupled with modern sensibilities, not just in the things that we have learned in cinematography for the last, in filmmaking in the past century, but also with very recent, very current topics that are honestly timeless. So, hey, it was inevitable that, something like a disaster and something like the government dropping the ball. I mean, that's universal. We could talk about the same with coronavirus, right? I'm waiting for that coronavirus movie where we shit on the government like Shin Godzilla does, but I don't know if we'll get there. But man, Japan, you got to be proud of this one, man. This is truly like the fact, just the studios coming together, Toho coming together, Hideki Anno, who's truly an icon. Like, there's Miyazaki, then there's Anno. I'm telling you, that is like the upper echelon of animators. That's like our Friz Freleng. That's like our Walt Disney, man. You really got something, Japan. Really got something to be proud of here, because Shin Godzilla is truly a piece of art that I will never forget anytime soon. So 4 out of 4 stars for me personally.
I think the takeaway message of this movie is that it revolves around two things, especially the second half, that any and every government needs to be successful, and that's accountability and adaptability.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the takeaway idea there, especially in the film when Yaguchi gets in charge and starts kind of coordinating relief efforts in that way. And it doesn't miss reminding us of the human capital loss, which Dom and I talked about in the midsection of this review, and stand by, is that I just love that beautiful bait and switch in that, you come in wanting the Godzilla action, and then you realize, it entraps you so much in these boardrooms and this sort of coordinated relief efforts or lack thereof, and the emergency meetings, that by the time we do cut outside and get a civilian's eye perspective of Godzilla destroying the damn country, it's regrettable in a way. I'll say, it reminded me a little bit. It's definitely this movie is not as graceful as Shin Godzilla, but just some of those scenes at like the eye level view, and even at some points just keeping us away from the monster. It reminded me in some ways of Cloverfield, and that we only see the monster, through the eyes of people, and then if we don't, it's boardrooms or news reports, and that winds up being more terrifying sometimes than actually seeing the thing itself.
Yeah.
And that's where Anno gets it. That's where co-director Higuchi gets it. And that's the beauty of the structure and the subversion of this. It's a 4-star movie for me too, undoubtedly. For everything that it offers. It offers the action, it offers the commentary, it offers the allegory and the acting too. on top of the black humor or the dry humor that's embedded into this, just the cherry on top.
There isn't a
I
single
laughed
joke.
loud and long at that line,
There isn't a
that line about
yeah.
Senator Patterson's daughter.
There's not a single joke. It really is humor. I know that's really pretentious for me to say, but just the way it's baked in, dude, I freaking love it, dude. Hell yeah. I love this movie. Clearly, Japan is just better at everything that the West does. That's really what you should be taking away from this. That's the true message. You know, anime superior to all else. That's what you should be getting from this.
I read somewhere, I cannot even remember where I read it, but I read somewhere that said that Europe will always be 50 years ahead culturally and artistically speaking than the U.S., and Japan will be 15 years ahead technologically than the U.S. And I think there's argument for both. I think there's argument for both. That you could definitely say that. You know, I live in an area that's still trying to figure out internet connection. Anyway, as I go to make some to try to get this town on the map right here, which I'll segue into this. I won't take a ton of time. I haven't even really formally announced this project yet, outside of just if the very few people who see my Facebook or Instagram stories, they'll see this. I really haven't made a full-blown announcement. I've talked to you guys kind of at length about it, this whole project. I think people think I'm nuts. I'm really just somebody who didn't have really a better way to spend a stimulus check. I'll say that much. But to quote the great writer, Charles Bukowski, it began as a mistake. So I discovered this online. It's called Free Blockbuster. You can check it out online, freeblockbuster.org. I discovered it on Easter weekend, and a buddy of mine found one in California, and he was posting about it. Basically, what this movement is the proclaimed goal of this thing is to quote unquote combat the myth of scarcity by providing free entertainment to as many people as possible while also preserving the rental experience. Essentially what folks have been doing around the country, and there's a couple dozen of these things around the country, as people have been buying old newspaper boxes. You remember the old 50-cent, dollar, whatever they were, newspaper boxes where you put quarters in and take the paper out of the box.
Mhm.
Or if you live in Chicago, I just know this because whenever you go, you always see these damn things, those red eye papers, those free papers that are in like the kiosks, those sort of things. The goal, or at least the approach, is acquiring one of these old newspaper boxes, refurbishing it and rebranding it and painting it to look like a Blockbuster. So painted in sunshine gold and royal blue, the typical colors of Blockbuster. And essentially placing it in an area that gets decent foot traffic and then filling it with DVDs, VHS tapes, Blu-rays, video games, toys. People have been doing a bunch of stuff with these things. And really reviving that sort of physical presence of movies. And that's what I'm getting at here too, is that, you know, we have so many streaming services. Christ, I have like 7 or 8. And we're at the point now of not only saturation, but it's gotten to the point now where it's like, it's very similar to cable in that the old joke, 560 channels and still nothing to watch. It's gotten to be that the more choice you have, the more difficult making that choice winds up being. And when it comes to the rental experience, and we talked at length about Family Video closing stores and then eventually closing down altogether, the rental experience is gone, in a lot of places, save for mom and pop shops, bless their souls. And this free Blockbuster movement is to bring that physical presence back. I think people in their heart of hearts, especially watching that last Blockbuster documentary on Netflix, want that back. They want that ability to pick up a movie or actually take one home. This is what we are watching tonight, dear. And having that sort of experience. And as you can see, I think Dom's been flashing on the screen periodically.
Yeah. Here's, real quick, this is Steve's. This is Steve's photo.
Yes.
He took this picture of you
Yep.
can see clearly this is the Nation's News, or is this USA Today?
This is USA Today. Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
So as you can see, I was busy last weekend. Next month, I'm aiming to have the first free Blockbuster in Illinois.
Nice.
Not to mention the first one in a predominantly rural area. It's going to be located in the Illinois Valley where I currently reside. You can take a look on Instagram at Free Blockbuster LaSalle. I've got it up and running at the moment, and you can see the photos being flashed. Oh man, it was a fun weekend. It was a fun Saturday that weekend. I rounded up a couple of my close friends, Mike and Sam. I rounded them up. I rented I didn't rent. I borrowed the van one of the delivery vans from my father's liquor store Saturday afternoon, and I drove out about 20 minutes away from my place because I found it on Facebook Marketplace. Because I was getting pissed initially because I kept trying to look for these newspaper boxes, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to find one I can pick up within a decent region, because to ship these monstrosities has got to be $100, to say the least. So I was finding them for like $350, $400, which is a lot of money for something at the end of the day that ain't gonna make money. So on top of shipping, so I found this one close to me. It was $175, which wasn't too bad compared to the other ones I've seen. I saw a really nice Chicago Sun-Times one online, but I couldn't bear to desecrate that. That was my rule. I wasn't going to touch anything Tribune or Sun-Times. I wasn't going to touch any newspaper box. USA Today, whatever. But anyway, I purchased this thing. I bought some spray paint, and let me tell you, I learned that weekend, you can't not look sus buying spray paint. You really can't. Like, I went to
especially having a mask on, right? Because you need to wear a mask. So like, were you wearing a handkerchief too, or like what I'm talking about, the bandit mask or two, or did you have a regular mask?
No, I did have a regular form-fitting mask, or face-fitting mask, but no, I didn't have that. But I bought some spray paint. My buddies and I, we lined my garage with newspaper because it was raining like a bitch, and we lined it with newspaper, and we painted the damn thing. And it looks great.
It looks crisp. I just flashed back to it, blue and gold. You are not kidding. That is crisp as hell. That looks real nice. Good work, dude.
You know what? And I realized how dumb we were at the beginning, because at first I wasn't planning on painting the base. I was just going to paint the top blue and leave the base black. But then I'm like, you know what? Let's paint the thing gold at the very bottom and see what it looks like. So we did. So then it was gold, black, and blue. And then I'm like, okay, what the hell? I ran out and got more yellow spray paint. We spray painted the base. We were stupid though, because it took almost 2 canisters of yellow to get it that bright. Because what we should have done in retrospect is probably paint the base white, because it was going yellow on black. So it took a lot to get that coat on. If we were smart, we probably would have primed it. But we ain't got that kind of time.
That's all like learning how to paint and stuff. You're good.
Yeah, but we did it. It took a couple hours. We were drinking while we were doing it. We were cracking open some beers and stuff like that, because you can't paint without beer. And we had a good time though. It's not 100% done yet, but it's about 75% done. I got some stickers that I'm going to put on it, because it's going to be a take a movie, leave a movie kind of thing. I'm hoping to get donations when this thing is placed. People take their old DVDs or VHS tapes they don't want anymore. They can throw them in the box. I got some customized Instagram stickers I'm going to put on this. I want to make this thing in my town. I want to make this thing a site, an attraction, something people can take a picture of, Instagram, hashtag it. This is something that is going to be Illinois. And I was talking, I actually had a couple conversations. I've been making calls to local officials and stuff just to get in the clearance of doing this. And I was talking to even the mayor of my town, and he even said too, he's like, I love this. He's like, it's going to be the first of its kind in Illinois. It's not in Chicago. It's not in Uptown. It's not in Tinley Park. It's in LaSalle, Illinois. And I think that's beautiful. I think that's a beautiful thing right there, because a lot of these are in Cincinnati and Detroit and Tarzana and a lot of big areas and big metropolitans. I want to see something in a rural area with this. So I'm about 75% of the way done. I got keychains made. I got keychains coming too.
What?
I got rubber keychains coming. Be on the lookout for that. You guys will get one. I'll put one to the side for you and Joe. Because I made a free Blockbuster LaSalle logo as well. This thing is hitting the ground running. If you want to follow the progress, go to Instagram.com/freeblockbuster LaSalle, LASALLE. And you can take a look there. I'm going to be tracking progress on the Instagram page, because I'm hoping to have it done completely next week. I'm hoping to have it completely, all the cosmetic work. It's about 75% of the way tailored at the moment. I'm hoping to have everything complete by next weekend. And I want to get this placed hopefully by mid-May, hopefully by Memorial Day. This thing will be placed, and it can start gaining some traction, because I think this could be big. And it's very similar in ethos to the free
libraries.
Library.
Yeah, I've heard of those before. Those are very popular, and they're good. I love the concept. I've never actually seen a free library before up front, but I know they do well, and that they're really just good for the community. We don't get a lot of community stuff going on these days, particularly in the land of COVID. But this is if we're not getting theaters, if theaters are going away the dodo, this will be the next best thing. So hell yeah, free Blockbuster.
Yeah, I am stoked. And I was trying to think of the last point I wanted to make with this. Oh yeah, too. If we were scrolling through the pictures too, let me tell you, that stencil was a pain in the ass. Let me tell you, that thing. It was not easy. The stencil was provided by freeblockbuster.org. I've actually gotten to really know the founder of the movement,
Nice.
named Brian. And I ordered a few accessories. He sent me some extra stuff. I ordered some accessories to make this look good.
Stenciling looks easy, but I think I've done it before and it sucks, dude.
No, it's not. I found a trick online that I'm going to try because I got to paint the other side. But like the first time we did it with the spray paint, we masked it onto the actual box and spray painted it. It bled. It ran.
Yeah, that was the problem I ran into because we're amateurs, so I don't know.
Yeah, because it's not like completely sealed on there. So it bled, and of course, what do yellow and blue make? Green. So then I had to like completely coat it over again with the blue spray paint. And then what I finally wound up doing, I went in there back to the hardware store because it's not an official project unless you go to the hardware store 3 times.
There you go.
It's not an official project. I went back to the hardware store and I got a thing of yellow paint. I got let me just tell you, if you and Chelsea ever need yellow paint for something, let me know. I have a friggin' can of it, of bright ass sunshine yellow paint. If you ever need any,
sure.
Just to let you know, paint your door yellow or something. Because that's what I said. I said I'm gonna use. I gotta get a whole. It's a small can, but it's still a lot of paint.
I just realized these are IKEA colors. Make sure that this doesn't get mistaken for an IKEA item.
No kidding, right? But yeah, so we got the one stencil paint. It ain't the prettiest, but it gets the job done, I think.
It looks good.
I just want it to be recognizable. And I got to get rid of some of the other USA Today things on the front, like with stickers and whatnot. So there's still work to be done. I'm hoping, like I said, to have it done next weekend. But I'm supremely excited. I'll be keeping you guys posted on YouTube and on my social media accounts with this thing.
What's the name of the Instagram again?
At Free Blockbuster LaSalle, LASALLE. At Free Blockbuster LaSalle. You can follow along. I've been posting stuff on there, just kind of updating. Really pleased with people coming out and really following. I've gotten 60 followers in like the span of a week. So this thing is taking off.
Let me get that algorithm going. Let me like all those right now.
Pretty solid stuff. I'm pumped. So that's our show though for today. I really appreciate my internet connection holding up today. I think it went pretty well. And I appreciate Dominic doing all he's doing in place of Joe Viso. He'll be back next week.
Yes. Please come back.
What a great show. What a great review.
If Joe comes back next week, we are obligated to talk about Shin Godzilla again for another half hour. That's just how it goes. I'm sorry, Steve, but
okay. We'll squeeze that in with the Oscar talk. We're not reviewing a movie next week. It's the Oscars. The Oscars are Sunday. I can't wait. I wish if it was closer, I'd go and grab it. I'm not going to waste time.
Ballot.
He got his ballot. I got my predictions. You can check that out at influxmagazine.com. I got my predictions live. And I'd go grab it right now if it wasn't so far away from me. I got a brand new bottle of chartreuse liqueur, what you know about it. I'll be cracking the seal on that Sunday evening. It's going to be great. I cannot wait to talk Oscars with you, gents, because we haven't done it yet. Like, we've gone a full year. In a normal year, we would have talked about it in February or March, but this will be kind of the first Oscar show since we've been back, not on radio. So I'm supremely excited about that. It's going to leave us with a lot to talk about. It'll probably be all or most of the show next week too, barring something else, barring something major, or barring Joe wanting to give his thoughts on Shin Godzilla, which I would not be opposed to. But that's our show, though, for today. Highlights will be posted on YouTube, right on my YouTube channel right here. Like, comment, and subscribe to the videos. And we'll keep pumping them out. Dominic, I want to thank you again for doing all your hard work today.
At least I could do.
Everybody else, stay safe, stay healthy, get vaccinated. We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening, 8 o'clock Central Time, right here on YouTube. I'm Steve Pulaski, Dominic Guanzon, and in for Joe Viso in spirit. This has been Sleepless with Steve.